Well, hello, everybody. My name is Michael McCormick, host of the Superintendent Hot Seat Podcast, where bold superintendent leaders share the real stories behind their most difficult challenges and decisions as they work to improve student safety, wellness, and attendance in a system not yet fully prepared for those entering our schools. Today, we've got two guests on the show. The first one is J.P. Turgeon. He's the founder and CEO of SchoolBeat, a social-emotional learning platform, and sponsor of this podcast. So welcome, JP.
Thank you. Very excited about this conversation.
And a very, very special guest, Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona, the 12th Secretary of Education. Dr. Cardona, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be with you. I appreciate the fact that, as a superintendent, you understand what's happening in our schools, and it's always good to have conversations about education from that perspective of what's really happening in our schools, not what's being discussed at the 50,000-foot view. That's I appreciate your perspective, your work in the field, and great to be with you, Michael and JP.
Awesome. So let me shoot you with the first question here to get that right to it. Is from your vantage point, what are the challenges you're seeing with respect to student wellness, whether it be anxiety, depression, bullying, or violence? And are schools equipped to support students? And most importantly, have you seen some promising practices as you've been out touring around?
Sure. Thank you for that question. I heard once someone say, schools are the psychological emergency rooms of our society. If you think about that, what's happening outside of our school walls is happening inside of our school walls.
Absolutely.
Right? And our schools are uniquely positioned, public schools, to receive whatever's happening. And we cannot separate the mental preparedness need that our students bring and our staff bring with them when they walk into our schoolhouses. So, to answer that question about what have I seen or where do I see it, my friend and former U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy identified a youth mental health crisis a couple of years ago that we had to address. CDC reported in 2021, 1 in 3 high school girls considered suicide. We can't just breeze through that. 1 in 3 girls in 2021. Now, we could go all day about the causes of that, but what I will tell you is that you ask any educator across the country today, you cannot provide good programming and ignore that. The causes for me, what I seen when I became Secretary of Education, President Biden fought really hard, and only half of Congress voted for it, but 100% of the students benefited from about $190 billion in ESSER dollars. And we made a point to say that mental health supports have to be a part of your reopening efforts or your support efforts. And I think, speaking as a father, I have, during the last 5-6 years, I had 2 high schoolers at home. I know that students were forced to isolate for a period of time, and it only exacerbated their dependency on technology for socialization. And I think the negative impact of that, coupled with the lack of oversight, regulation, and protections for students, guardrails, if you will, during the social media era, we now have a generation of students who are overly dependent on social, and they seek validation from the device. And I think we're at a point now where we're realizing, number one, that we have to counteract that, and that we have to be all the more wise as this next chapter of technological revolution of artificial intelligence takes hold, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of where I would pause there. I think, the dependency on technology that was exacerbated by isolation created habits in children and young adults that made an overdependence on that impact their loneliness and their lack of socialization, which is what we're trying to compensate for now.
Yeah, kind of trying to unwind that in a way. And I love what you said about being I'm a father of identical twin girls, and I saw in my own house similarly to you and your experience. And by the way, I remember being on a webinar when I was serving as a superintendent with you, and talking about this exact phenomena that we're facing. And so I appreciate all the efforts that you and your administration were really trying to do to support. What is your thought on adult wellness in schools? We hear, about teachers and leaders leaving the profession. And again, I'm just wondering if you're aware of any bright spots across the nation where teachers and school leaders are feeling acknowledged and supported through some retention efforts to try and keep people, in the profession, because we know that longevity in the classroom, longevity in the principalship, it makes a difference for kids when you've got people that are able to sustain some of these big initiatives over a period of time.
Yeah, that's a loaded question because, I don't want to be facetious here, but sometimes it feels like, we're reshuffling chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah.
Public education is under attack.
Yeah.
There's an effort to systematically dismantle it.
Yeah.
Discredit it.
Yeah.
So yes, when teachers are leaving their profession, they're feeling disrespected. They're feeling not valued. But we have to recognize that our educators, our leaders, being a superintendent today is totally different than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We have to take it in totality to say our teacher retention issue is a symptom of a teacher respect issue that we have in this country. And we need to make sure that we're reminding our educators, our leaders, that this is the best profession, that while we're in another storm of partisanship and division and attacking public education, discrediting higher education, K-12 education, that we're going to survive this and we're going to come out stronger like we did during the pandemic, where we were unified. There was a period of time where we knew what we had, but we were working together to try to rebuild. I feel confident that, this attack on public education or efforts to discredit public education, we have to come out stronger. And part of that is making sure that our educators know that not only are they protecting public education, they're protecting democracy. If our public education system falls apart, I firmly believe democracy is not too far behind, because what it does is protect the great equalizer and prevent the haves and the have-nots being determined by race and place. So to me, this is a civil rights challenge to protect access to public education for all kids and to raise the bar in public education so that it's not, good for some and horrible for others. And let me tell you, as former secretary, while I was secretary, there was a lot of work to be done. It was far from perfect. I thought we were moving the needle in the right direction, but there was a lot of work to improve our systems. And I still feel that we're in that fight to make sure that we're protecting public education.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Very well said. JP, I know you have a question for Secretary Cardona.
So for me, I think public education is fine. It's the challenges that are increasing. We're talking about lack of socialization because of COVID. And I don't know if you guys read the book, The Anxious Generation. It's an amazing book, and they studied the increase of depression and all kind of cause in depression, anxiety for teens, 13 to 18. And then they see this spike from 2010, studying for back into 1980, and this spike to 2010. What happened in 2010? That's the social media phase that's just starting to pop up. This is still the problem today. So we're 2 years out of COVID, and there's still this lack of socialization because of people are socializing on this closed circuit, which is Instagram, TikTok, and those social media. So what I see and what I hear is that there's a rise in violence in the classroom. Kids that are showing up today are not the same kid as 5 years ago. Teachers are overwhelmed. And my question is, we know that social emotional learning has been proving impact on reducing anxiety, improving behavior, improving academic performance. Yet we're still not teaching those skills like we're teaching math in English. What is it going to take, based on your experience, change this shift, Dr. Cardona?
Yeah. So, I think some of it has become politicized, sadly. There's some states that look at social emotional learning as a indoctrination, or, they kind of vilify it, while we know the brain research tells us that, well-being increases aptitude and your ability to learn. We know that executive functioning skills and self-regulation are better predictors of success than even reading in the early years. So what I think we need to do is stay true to what the research is telling us about how children learn best, so that we could get to the reading and all that. So connect it to what the mindset is of those policymakers who are either blocking it or supporting it, right? That to me is a big part of it. And I think, I don't think I addressed the question that was before about the adults. Our children are dysregulated. And I think a lot of times our societies are dysregulated. Our country's dysregulated at times. And I turn on the news and I see what's happening. It's hard to believe that this is not like some fantasy world or some bad dream. Some of the things that are being daily. So we have dysregulated communities. So to your point, JP, I think social emotional well-being is not only good for students, but it's good for our adults. How do we ground ourselves in shared goals, shared beliefs? How do we start from the same starting block to say, look, regardless of political ideology, how do we build something together, build community around shared beliefs of treating each other with respect, honoring differences, and not looking at different as bad, and basic norms of engagement that in many cases our kids have lost. And I think it's been accelerated by technology without guardrails. But this is nothing new. I started teaching in 1998, and I remember unregulated internet exposed kids to things that they should not have seen at 9 years old. Fast forward, 15 years, social media, unregulated, exposed children to things that they should not have seen or experienced, or comments that they should not have read. Fast forward, 2026, artificial intelligence is giving children exposure to things unregulated that they should not be experiencing. One of the things we need to be worrying about now, and it's happening under our noses, are students falling in love with an artificial intelligence creation, bot, whatever you want to call it. There are kids in middle school and high school right now whose affection and reliance is on a made-up character, and it's happening under our noses. And we're going to be seeing the effects of that if we don't get in front of protecting our students in our districts. So, not only do we have to be thinking about social emotional well-being as part of our core programming, not ancillary, not if we have time, but we also have to be protecting our students and making sure that our adults are aware of what's happening, or else we're just going to be dealing with the symptoms of how technology can harm our children if left unregulated.
I'm totally agree with you that regulating each of those new things coming out are essential, but because there's a but to me, there's no regulation that's going to teach those kids skills that ahead of time they wouldn't need a regulation to know that this doesn't make sense, right? Because they know the good from the bad. And this is like this hot potato where nobody wants to teach our kids, whether we're parents. And we know, we all have kids here. We know as parents how many times that you wish that you would have taught this to your kids, and for whatever reason you did not. And then we get older and then we say, okay, I need to do this differently now as parents. So
yeah, I think it's about being proactive and saying,
I like,
how do we make sure that our kids are developing those skills so that we're not correcting or having them unlearn behaviors, right? And I think, as a former school principal, I was a school principal for 10 years.
Yeah.
We knew that an ounce of prevention, right, is worth a lot, So how do we look at social emotional well-being for our youngsters, but also for our organizational health as part of our jobs? And I think, as I said before, depoliticizing it, making it about what the research says and about good outcomes. I think that's the approach.
That's awesome. Dr. Cardona, we're coming to the end of the podcast here. We so appreciate your time. Just going to ask you one final question. What's on your gratitude list?
Family, music, the blessing of being able to engage with students, with educators. I really do feel like, I tell people all the time, sometimes I'll speak at universities or to people that are coming out and to get in their doctorate or whatever. I'm like, look, if your professional why and your personal why are linked, you're going to be happy. You know what I mean? So for me, what makes me happy, what makes me thankful is the fact that in this chapter of my life, right, I got to serve at the highest levels, but I still stay connected to the classroom, to students, because to me, what a privilege it is to serve in a field where we get to help children reach their God-given potential, right? That's a blessing. And the fact that I was able to make a career out of it and continue to be passionate about it, for me is really what I'm most thankful for.
I love that, and so well said. Thank you again, Secretary Cardona. We so appreciate your time, and JP, appreciate you being here as well. Thank you guys very much.
Appreciate both of you. Thank you.